Greetings, everyone. This is Kalei Ross with In Pursuit of Purity. It is my desire to learn as much as I can about chocolate and the chocolate making industry. I would love to share with you what I learn, so I hope you enjoy these videos. Welcome, everybody. This is Kalei Ross with In Pursuit of Purity. And while I live in the Pacific Northwest, today we get to travel south all the way down to Trinidad as we have our guest today, Richard Cruz, who's a cacao farmer down there. Welcome and thank you for joining us, Richard.
Oh, thanks for having me, Kale. I appreciate that. Thank
I
you.
can't help but wonder, as I said, I'm here in the Pacific Northwest, but you're down in Trinidad. Please share a little about Trinidad and what makes it a special place as a cacao farmer.
Okay, well, in Trinidad, it's 7 miles north of Venezuela, just off the coast of Venezuela. It's an English-speaking island in the Caribbean, but it has a very diverse past. And cacao has always been one of the main crops of the country. Now it's predominantly into oil and gas, but cacao has been traditionally one of the main crops. And as a matter of fact, the name Trinitario for the variety of bean has its origins in Trinidad.
Hmm.
Um, when the Spaniards were leaving Mexico, going back to Spain, they stopped off in Trinidad in 1525 and planted the first cacao trees on the island, and hence the connection, the very beginning of the rich history of cacao and cacao
Mm-hmm.
growing in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Um, it's always been it's always been a principal crop, and like it was cacao and sugar were the two main crops. And cacao is like been a like a way of life, and it's for the people involved in it.
Mm.
All aspects of it, it became a lifestyle. So even though it's the production levels have dropped over time, the what do you say, like the heritage remains, and those of us who are still in it are trying to preserve it and keep it going.
So, given the incredible heritage of cacao there, what led you to become a cacao farmer?
I am not one of those that came from a long line of cacao. A lot of people who are in cacao, the generations either were working on other large estates or they had small holdings. Um, I came into that just, I had a love for agriculture and country life. And so I bought an estate in 2001, and it had cacao trees on it. It was a former cacao estate.
Mm.
But at the time, the main crop was bananas. So cacao was like just a secondary, even tertiary kind of crop on it. And the main thing in being bananas
Mm.
and nutmeg. And when about 2006, black sigatoka disease came to Trinidad and started to affect the banana crop,
Mm.
I started looking into what I could diversify into. And I mean, it was already an established cacao estate. So I did research into how to rehabilitate the trees and so on. And
Mm.
that's what got me in it. And I was just hooked after that. But also a lot of the older people that I would have interacted with that lived around and so on, they born and grew up in cacao. So it was like a natural thing just to kind of learn from them, and I had liked that lifestyle. So it was like a natural next step.
Mm. Hmm. When you talk about cacao's rich history, you made reference to the actual varietal of the Trinitario having roots,
Right.
obviously, in Trinidad. What kinds of flavors can we expect from cacao in Trinidad?
Oh well, Trinidad has first Trinidad is known for only producing fine flavor cacao. They're not bulk cacao. So there are a variety of flavors that you get, and funny enough, like every different field has its own kind of nuances, and even in the same area. Um, so like with me, then I started out in the North Coast in area called Montevideo, and I had a specific profile, as you'd say, flavor profile in that area. And now that I've moved to Aripo, which is in the mountains, um, a totally different taste again. And like you notice that every different area has its own flavors.
Mm-hmm.
So like you might have they class it as floral, some are fruity, some are nutty and stuff like that. So in Montevideo, it had a very high butter fat content, and it also like you got notes of coffee and like milk and stuff in it.
Mm.
And then a repo now, it's like um, kind of like for me, I get like red fruit kind of taste to it, like
Mm.
cherries and yeah and things like that. So it's amazing how different it can be. You know, even though I'm the same person handling the beans the same way, but you're
Mm-hmm.
getting totally different flavors. Yeah. For some reason, every area has its own taste. And people were thinking maybe it's like what you plant with it, like if there
Mm-hmm.
are bananas close by or citrus close by. But it seems like it's just like the I guess I don't know the environment that it grows in imparts its own flavors. I guess. Yeah, I can't really say what accounts for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, why don't you share more about your company? Because you talked about having one estate and then now a new estate in Aripo.
Right. Well, the first one I had that I named that plantation. I named that one Hacienda Provechoso, Bountiful Estate, and that was in the north coast of Trinidad. This one now is in a repo in the mountains. Is Finca Dos Vistas, and I named it Finca Dos Vistas because where I am, there are two mountains to the north and to the south of me. So you're seeing both of them. So it means two views. So I named it after
Mm.
the two views. One is called Shawaramal, that's the mountain in the north, and the one to the south is Monpui. And yeah, it's a beautiful view, and I named the place after that. Where I was in Montevideo, that was 15 acres, so that was a large plantation. But that estate was over 100 years old. That when I actually started rehabilitating the cocoa in 2007, that was 100 years since that estate started, and I was
Wow.
lucky enough to meet and speak with some of the previous owners. And so it had varietals from basically over 100 year period then, because I had planted new ones and it was continually planted over time. And so I had all different types of cacaos.
My goodness.
Um, and this one now, in Aripo now, it's a smaller place, it's 2 acres, but I'm planting it from scratch. So it was forest before, and
Mm-hmm.
I've planted cacao, and it's just under a year, and the trees are already have young, they say Shirel, which is the young pods are
Mm-hmm.
starting to come out on the trees already. So this is exciting because I laid it out and planted it from scratch. Yeah.
Wow. Tell us about your company.
Normally what I do, because remember my new plantation is young and it wasn't bearing as yet, I bought beans from other farmers in the area because the repo is historically cacao area, to put it one way. Then most of the people who are there came because they were working on the different estates. They had two main estates. um, I guess before there were more, but like in the, I'd say probably in the 40s and 50s, they were kind of conglomerated into two main estates. So
Mm.
most of the people who are living in Aripo were working those estates. And as the estates kind of closed down, they started doing their own small holdings, um, and I started buying the wet beans from them, and I would ferment it and dry it
Mm.
and export the beans. Um, and then, well, with COVID now, um, a lot of the markets have slowed down and shipping and everything has become more problematic.
Mm.
So I'd gone into making my own chocolate. We're in Trinidad, we have a tradition of making drinking chocolates. So I've made my own drinking chocolate from Aripo beans, and marketed that. So I named it 1525 because again 1525 was the year that trees were first planted in Trinidad, and drinking chocolate was the first way that chocolate was enjoyed. So it's like um, a kind of commemoration of the history, then the rich history of chocolate in Trinidad. And as I say, you're drinking it in the form it was originally used in, and as a drink.
So it's like you are helping to maintain the history through your own chocolate.
Yeah, I'm trying. And that's why I chose the name too, 1525. And you know, everything I've tried to make it like it's also like historic, and it's an educational experience. You know, I
Hmm.
tried to put like the history on the packaging itself, so for those who aren't aware of it. And you know, it's like, you know, yeah, try it the way it was originally intended. That's what made the world fall in love with cacao in the first place, is
Uh-huh.
drinking it. And so yeah, get into drinking it.
Can you share about your packaging? I know that you mentioned the year, the importance of the year, but tell us about what led to the design of your packaging.
Well, the on the in the middle of the package has a cacao flower, and that's from one of the trees that is by on my farm. I was able to get a nice picture of the flower, and so I said, okay, well, I'll use that as the I kind of as the logo then, you know, as that's from my new farm then.
Hmm.
Um, and then, well, you know, the name of the estate, Finca Dos Vistas, and the um, the year. And then on the back now, I try to, as I said, to put the history so that because people are like, why did you put this number then? You know, I guess a lot of products don't really have numbers for their name. So it's like it's a date, and I put the significance and the history, the story behind it. Um, and you know, that's yeah, it just kind of just came together that way for me.
You talked about some of the challenges that the other farmers are facing as a result of COVID. Are there other specific challenges that cacao farmers have faced historically or that they continue to face today?
Yeah, well, actually, yeah, in Trinidad, like post independence, in the colonial times, most of the estates were large estates, and the estates themselves used to export their beans. Um, and somewhere, I don't have the exact date then, but at some point the government stepped in and started to buy beans on behalf of the smallholders. Um, and as a matter of fact, it was like a law then that all beans had to be sold to the government
Mm.
unless you had a private exporter's license. I was told that the law was enacted from since colonial times that all cacao belonged to the crown. Um, and so to get around that, you had to get an export license. So there were a few private farms that were large that had their export license to do that. So there are a few families who've, you know, they're associated with that, and their farms they exported and so on. But the majority of people sold to the government, and the government then sold to buyers internationally.
Mm.
At one point, Cadbury, the chocolate company in the UK, they had a
Mhm.
plantation in Trinidad. Um, and I believe in colonial times they sold it. Their plantation was called Ortanola Estate. Um, and now I don't think they actually buy much of their beans from Trinidad. I think it is.
Mm.
I'm not sure. I think they get most of their beans from Africa now, but most of Trinidad's beans, if not in fact all of Trinidad's beans, tends to be premium beans and attract like higher prices. Um, but anyway, so the government would buy all the beans from everyone, and they had an organization called the Cocoa Board, and in about what it was, I think it's about 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. They changed the law that so that they liberalized it so that the state would no longer buy all the beans, that they said that farmers can look for their own markets. People can come in and do direct trading with farmers and so on. But the fallout of that, unfortunately, was that um, most farmers don't have the contacts or maybe the wherewithal to make contacts with buyers.
Mm-hmm.
So they ended up now kind of like with no market. And so like that just caused a lot of people to kind of like they had nowhere to sell their beans. They had a lot of beans that went to waste. Um, and by the year 2015, I believe, yeah, it was the end of 2015, they had an election and a new government came in. And like the buyers who would normally buy the fermentaries and the cocoa board, and they weren't buying for like a 6 month period. So most people like they just ended up having to throw away beans, and a lot of people just they got disheartened and they just got out of cocoa.
Wow.
So even when like people's like there were people trying to get contact to buy beans and stuff like that again, but a lot of farmers had already been disheartened, and they just kind of lost their markets. um, so as I said, so when I went to Aripo last year, I started to buy from the other farmers around, and most of the farmers that I buy from are all ageable people in their 70s and up.
Wow.
um, One person I buy from, he's 77 and he works his place alone. His cousin I also buy from, he's in his 80s.
My
Um,
goodness.
yeah, their neighbor, he's in his late 80s, but his son, who's in his 60s, took over and is trying to keep the farm going. So most of the people are old, and so like I was able to come in and give them a market for their beans
Mm-hmm.
again. And as I said, with COVID now, it came in and the lockdowns came in March. So that was kind of like the second height of the crop.
Mm-hmm.
And so you couldn't do anything with the beans at the time. Then you just bought beans and it just kind of stayed there.
Oh
So,
no.
but luckily, like toward the end, like coming down to May, June, that's when the crop already naturally has a low period, and it would now start to be coming back in. So now that things are easing up, I start back buying beans again. But who knows what the future holds as far as the markets are concerned. We're hoping that we'll get a upturn,
Right.
coming into the end of the year and the new year.
Mm-hmm.
But at least as I'm making my drinking chocolates now, like that's getting a lot of good response. So I'm using more and more beans. So at least I
Mm.
can buy more than when I first started.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of orders are coming in. So I'm looking now into export as a means of selling. And also I want to get a melanger so I can start to make eating chocolate as well. Yeah, eating chocolate will be something that I think the sky's the limit for that. Yeah.
What about your thoughts about the future of cacao for Trinidad cacao farmers? What is it that you hope to see for them?
And year go, year come, you always hear like when we have international meetings with like ICA and other international bodies, they always say they want more cacao from Trinidad. So it's like for some reason there's like a disconnect. Like farmers here are growing it and can't get sales, and yet internationally people want Trinidadian cacao. So it's like
Hmm.
you have to find some way to kind of let the two meet. Then you have to find a
Right.
way to get the two to meet so that we can everybody can have a mutual benefit. Yeah, so I'm not sure exactly. I mean, I guess online and stuff like that. That's one good thing is that with social media, is that we have an outlet that wasn't so readily available before, so that
Hmm.
we can reach more markets and stuff like that through social media. So that's positive. I guess
Hmm.
more people are online with all the COVID stuff. One thing, a lot of stuff has moved online, so that's it. But we just have to figure out a way of actually getting it from here to there. Then,
Right.
yeah.
As you talked about chocolate, you made reference to your drinking chocolate. What kinds of flavors can the consumer experience from your drinking chocolate?
So far, all the feedback has been, that it's very rich and it's like there are a lot of nice subtle flavors and so on that come out through it. I myself, like I said, I get like cherry kind of taste somehow in it.
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, but it's versatile, so you can drink it hot or cold. Um, and for those who like strong drinks, like if they add a little spirits to it, it makes an excellent cocktail. So
Mm-hmm.
and then of course you can use it for baking. Just in place of baking chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have like the bitterness of like maybe a lot of people who are not familiar with like fine flavor cocoa or cacao. Like they associate chocolate as being very bitter, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not bitter at all. You can use it in recipes and they bring out the flavor of it, and you don't have to try to mask the bitterness, so you can
Mm-hmm.
actually use it and get the strong chocolate flavor. And yeah, that comes out shining then.
Mm-hmm. So, what about consumers? What is it that you think would be important for consumers to know about uh, cacao from Trinidad?
Well, okay, well, knowing the history of it as well, and as I said, a lot of people, as you said, who are new to like gourmet and craft chocolates and high-end chocolates, they're accustomed like with the extra sweet candy kind of stuff. Um, Trinidad is one of the, as I say, one of the places that I think there are a few places that produce fine flavored cocoa, as they say, as opposed to bulk or commodity cocoa that is just kind of bitter and just, that's why it's using candies. Um, Trinidad actually has like nice flavors, and it's not just acrid and bitter. And you have to mask it with a lot of sugar or milk and all this other stuff. You can use it at higher percentages, and they've always had a standard that we have to maintain um, low defects in the beans, and so you don't want any off flavors, you don't want any smokiness or
Mm-hmm.
um, you know any kind of off flavors, because cacao draws flavors around it. So it's very they've always had laws and regulations that we have to follow to make sure that you get a premium, well handled product. And so with Trinidad, you'll get that. And Trinidad is one of the places that also has always fermented the cacao. Some places they don't ferment the beans; they just wash it and dry it. But fermentation is where the flavors come from.
Mm-hmm.
So Trinidad has always had a history of carefully fermenting, and traditionally it's been sun dried. Some people have gotten into using artificial dryers, but they've always pointed out that artificial drying has its drawbacks, and sun dried is always the best.
Mm-hmm.
So Trinidad has tried to maintain that sun drying. There might be some people might do some artificial drying if the weather is especially bad, but the focus is to try and sun dry it to get better quality all around then from doing that. I only sun dry mine. I don't have artificial dryers or anything. So it's totally sun dried. A lot of Trinidad actually has the World Gene Bank for cacao varieties, where they did research and went and collected all varieties of cacao, and they have plants that they planted in Trinidad, and they do research into it. So they do their own research into crossbreeding and coming up with new varieties.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so Trinidad has always been like a kind of forerunner in the science of developing new varieties and also best exploiting the flavors in the bean itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting, when you try beans from Trinidad, you're getting like a long history of research and as I said, Trinidad has like always been from the ground floor in cacao, and from the very beginning, Trinidad has
Mm-hmm.
always been like a leader in all aspects of it. Then
What is it that you would like people to leave with from our conversation?
okay, well, I hope it is that our conversation was informative for those who maybe knew nothing about or knew nothing much about like the intricacies of cacao. It came into it just knowing like they like chocolate and not knowing much, and getting history of Trinidad's involvement in in the whole cacao industry. There's a lot more, but I mean, we touch the surface, so they can always go deeper and stuff like that after. But I hope it is that,
Mhm.
they've been, tickled to find out
Mhm.
more, and
Mhm.
to try beans from Trinidad. It's one of those things because it's not, the production level has dropped. It's also one of those things that makes it kind of scarce. So it's
Mm.
like it's always been something that's like, high end, and you wouldn't see like Trinitario beans from Trinidad and low end chocolates. So it's always
Mhm.
been something kind of like a kind of high end thing.
Mhm.
But we're trying to make it now, make a wider availability of it and in different forms, um, so that you can get a taste of history. Trinidad's been right there from the beginning, and hopefully will continue to be there and be have a wider, a more major role going forward.
Mhm.
Because things have, over the past few years, and things have, kind of fallen back. So I'm hoping it is that, it will continue to rise and come back to its place of glory. At one point, I think it was, Trinidad was like, um, the third largest producer of beans at one point.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, obviously now is like very very small numbers, But
Mhm.
yeah, but hopefully it is that if we can produce quantity, at least we can be, proud of our quality.
Sure. Well, I thank you so much for your time. I mean, I certainly learned a lot about the history that was very valuable because it really puts the whole cacao industry into context, as well as providing me as the consumer with a greater appreciation when I eat something from Trinidad. I know that it's going to be something very special, as well as being great quality.
Oh, well, thank you also very much, Kale, for this opportunity, and I really appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to highlight not only Trinidad, but my own, brand. And, I really appreciate that.
Well, I certainly wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much, Richard.
Thank you too, Kale.